Good afternoon, everybody. Pastor Cord here, and coming to you from my office. And just wanted to, I was going to film this in Joe's office because he's gone, but I figured he'd notice the backdrop and he'd be mad. So I'm doing it in my office. But man, we're finishing up our series called No Fear. And not only finishing up our series called No Fear, we're getting out of the Old Testament. So pause for a loud cheer. 21 weeks in the Old Testament as we've gone through the story. It's been a blast. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I certainly hope that you've benefited from understanding the story of Scripture from the beginning of the Old Testament to the end of the time with Malachi. And as we wrap things up this week in our No Fear series and wrap up the Old Testament, we're going to land in a place called Jerusalem, where the Israelites have gone back to their homeland after years of captivity. They've rebuilt the temple. And news gets back to a young man named Nehemiah who finds the news rather disheartening that his country and his capital city of Jerusalem has a temple, but they have no wall. And Nehemiah begins the journey of going back and rebuilding the wall around Jerusalem. And so as we thought about this week, I asked myself, why is it such a big deal that Nehemiah wants to build a wall? And it hit me. The reason why the wall is significant is because of what it protects. It protects God's temple. That's the purpose of the wall. The only reason the wall was significant, and the only reason why these people put a mind to work, was because in building a wall, they said the temple matters. And that got me to thinking, we put an awful lot of time and effort and energy, as you can see here, in a building sometimes. And I think sometimes we get distracted or off point that maybe God's temple is still in a building. But Paul reminds us that God is not worshipped in temples or buildings made by hands. But we're the temple of God. We are the place where God's presence dwells. And I wonder how much effort and time we put into protecting what is important to God, like the Israelites did. This is one of my most cherished possessions. This is it's cherished because it's a Chicago Bears football helmet. But more importantly, it's cherished because it's signed by one of the greatest Chicago Bear football players of all, Dick Butkus. And I keep it in this case because I don't want you touching it. So I keep it there to protect it, because the case, what surrounds it, tells people that what's inside matters. And that's what Nehemiah did in building the wall. He said that what's inside matters. And this week we're going to talk about Nehemiah. We're going to talk about how they built the wall. But more importantly, we're going to talk about why they built it and why protecting the temple is important. And so I want to encourage you to come back and find ways this week where you and I can learn to help each other protect that temple, that place where God's presence dwells. Listen, have a great week. Be careful out there. There's a lot of people out there for Speed Week, and we look forward to seeing you this weekend.